Weight Loss Part 2 is the second episode of the fifth season of The Office. This is directed by the wonderful Paul Feig, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I didn't like the first part, I didn't care for it. I still feel like we didn't need the first part to get to this second episode. I feel like this could have just been the first episode, but nevertheless, part 2 is absolutely brilliant. And we have several main parts to the narrative, so I'll talk about each of them in turn. We get brief conversations about Angela and Andy's wedding, so we're not moving too forward with that, but it's interesting enough. And we have the main narrative, of course, about the weight loss, and we also have the return of Rainn. Michael called the temp agency to get Rainn back. He is now the receptionist, and he said to the camera, Rainn said to the camera, "I'm keeping a list of everybody who wrongs me so that when I'm back at the top, they'll be sorry." So he does a lot of apologising in this episode, which I'm assuming he says it in a kind of very insincere way, as if he's reading a script, and I feel like this is probably part of his 12-step program, which makes perfect sense. But before he does all of that, he says at the beginning that he'll make people sorry. So he's still not a very likeable character. His behaviour seems very untrustworthy, and I'm keen to see what happens going forward with Rainn. I'm keen to see what they do with the character, but I'm pleased he's back. I'm definitely pleased he's back. I don't know what's going to happen when Pam comes back from her course. We'll see. I am keen to find out. The main narrative focuses on, of course, the weight loss, and they're competing with other branches. Michael comes out in his Michael Clump persona, where he's wearing this sumo suit, and I googled the name to make sure I'd heard it correctly, and I had. It's Michael Clump, and it turns out there's a Funko Pop. There is a Michael Clump Funko Pop. There are a lot of The Office Funko Pops. I haven't looked into them too much because I don't want to risk any spoilers, because a lot of them are very creative, and I wasn't expecting it. It's very, very bizarre. And he's wearing this half-inflated sumo suit, and I have to say, credit to him, he gave this really lovely speech to Kelly about what makes her beautiful and saying all of these really lovely things to her. But we did have a very odd moment where he tells Kelly to stand up on the chair, and he says, "What makes her beautiful?" And Rainn stands up and says, "Everything, she's perfect." So up until that point, everything he'd said, all of the apologies, it felt like he was reading a script as part of his 12-step program. That was my reading of it. But when he said that felt unnecessary. So I don't know where that specific thing is coming from, and I'm keen to see what they do with that as well. And it turns out they're 8 pounds away from winning. They still have some time left in the day. So I think it was Andy who turned up the heat, and they're supposed to sweat out 8 pounds, which doesn't seem possible. And, well, they ultimately don't win. And not surprising, actually, because Jim comes in from being out. We'll get to Jim in a second. He's dripping wet, so that's going to add water weight to the scale, if anything else. So they didn't win, but at the same time, I didn't find this part of the narrative to be as uncomfortable as previously. I found it to be a very uncomfortable just concept in general, and it wasn't as awkward in this episode, I don't think. And I think that's largely because there were a lot of other things going on. And then we come to Jim, and Jim messages Pam on Instant Messenger, and they agree to meet halfway for lunch. And they're just at this rest stop, and Jim gets out of his car. The cameras have obviously followed him there, and it's pouring down with rain. It's so beautiful, and Pam walks towards him to meet literally in the middle, basically in the middle of the screen. And as soon as there's maybe a foot between them at most, Jim gets down on one knee and proposes, and I cried. I cried because I've been waiting for this for so long, and it was perfect. There was no fanfare. It was purely about how Jim felt towards Pam in the moment, and that's all they needed. And I think it's very clear that Pam has also been waiting for this to happen, so she was just overjoyed by the looks of it, and it was just perfect. It was, well, I was going to say it was unexpected. I think it was, when he said meet for lunch, I thought, okay, he's going to propose then. Something told me it was going to happen, but I most certainly did not expect it to happen right there and then, in the pouring rain, the very second they meet. It was beautiful, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It's finally happened, and I'm absolutely overjoyed. I absolutely love it, and is perfect. It's the best thing that could have happened in this episode, and I'm getting emotional again. It's very, very lovely. As I said, this is a strong episode compared with the previous one. I feel like the previous one just didn't need to happen. This could have been the opening, and it would have been so, so powerful. I don't know if these aired back to back because IMDb lists them as just one episode, whereas they are actually episode 1 and episode 2 of season 5. So IMDb episode numbers are way, way off, but it does say aired. In fact, I'll be able to tell on Wikipedia. 1 second. Yes, I can confirm, at least according to Wikipedia, both episodes aired on the same day, 25th of September 2008, and 9.34 million viewers, if anybody's interested. So, fair enough, technically part 2 is also the opening to season 5, if they aired on the same day. But I really don't think we needed part 1. But nevertheless, it exists, it's whatever. Part 2 is pretty great. Nice to see Rainn back. Oh, and at the very end, I wasn't expecting this because I haven't looked ahead. I refuse to look ahead. I try and avoid spoilers at all costs. But when Toby left, I just assumed Toby had left. But no, he was in the episode. At the very end, he was in a hospital bed. He had a tragic accident, I think he said 5 weeks ago, and he's been in hospital ever since. I didn't know that. I didn't know Toby was going to be in it. So that was very, very unexpected. So definitely a really great episode. Stark contrast to part 1. Weight Loss part 2 is a brilliant and at times very emotional episode of The Office.